wants to tame me. You can't catch me on the run, cause I'm gone, yeah. I blaze trails, set fire to what's behind me. No, I'm never looking back, I'm on the run. I could only ever be what I'm made to be. It feels good when I'm living on the edge. Watch me now, roll like thunder, gonna shake the ground. Can't stop me now, I don't give up and I won't back down. I'm a force of nature, can't be contained. I got lightning running all through my veins. Watch me now, watch me now.
Hello, Mountaineers. I'm the Wolfman, Dale Wolfley, and this is a Wolfman's Call, Monday, December 19th, 2022. And I'm telling you right now, I have a great Wolfman's Call for you. I have head football coach, Jacksonville State Gamecocks, Rich Rodriquez. You know, Coach Rich Rod and I go way back. I can go back to 1981 through 84 when he played with my brother Ronnie, to 89 when he was assistant coach, giving me rides down to High Street, man, telling me to watch out and stay out of trouble. And I can also remember stories with him at Glenville State, him and Rita going out and painting the lines of the field the morning of the Glenville State games. Here's a man that's come a long ways, and I'm a proud Mountaineer to stand with a proud Mountaineer. Behind me, you will see his coaching career and places he's been. And I'm going to say this, listen to head coach Rich Rod, because he's got a lot of wisdom, a lot of knowledge, and he's still at the top of his game. Listen. As promised, I have head football coach of Jacksonville State, Rich Rodriquez. Coach Rich Rod, Richie, all the good stuff, man. How you doing today?
I'm great. Well, great to catch up with you. How you been?
Oh, man, I've been fantastic. It's just great to see your face, man, and see that you're doing so well. And I want to wish you and your family very ho, Merry Christmas, a happy holidays and a happy New Year, brother.
Well, thank you. It's going to be a happy holiday. Even though we're not in a bowl, we did have a good season, and we weren't eligible for a bowl game or the playoffs, but everybody's doing well. Everybody's enjoying it. We're actually going to head out to Arizona for a couple weeks for the holidays, and then back here in the nice mountains of Alabama after that.
Whoa, mountains. Okay, very good. So Jacksonville State, exciting times, you know, Coach. It's got a long history of success. Even D2, they were national champion. FCS, they played in some big games. Obviously, a year before you came, they beat Florida State. That was a big win for them. And now they're actually moving on up. And how did this story come about with you personally?
Yeah, it's they have. You're right. They've won their Division II. They moved up to 1AA, won there, and then this year they made a decision to transition and move up to 1A, move in Conference 1A, and that may be one reason why. Obviously, it's appealing for me, but I also think maybe they looked at some coaches that had some Division I experience, and that's how I got involved. But actually, the guy that first contacted me, I didn't know much about Jacksonville State, was the guy that interviewed me for the Alabama job 15 years ago, named Johnny Williams, and he was involved with me there. And then he called me and said, "Hey, there's another little school that's moving up to Division I. Would you be interested in it?" And I thought, what the heck? You know, I still got some, tread on the tires, I guess, and came up here, and it's been a blast. The guys have played hard. I got a really good staff put together, and we've really enjoyed it. And the landscape of the town and the university and all that is just like West Virginia. It's in the hills. It's a little small school, about 9,500 students, so it's been a good fit.
Yeah, I've heard, I did some research of my own. I heard from some birds down there how cool the culture it is and how football crazy, and especially Jacksonville State crazy they are. So kudos to you and congratulations. You were 9-2, but I didn't see a conference championship posted next to you because you have all these conference championships. What's going on with that? Because I want to clarify that.
Yeah, good. I hope somebody could clarify it for us because we had obviously we're in ASUN conference. It's the first year that we were in the league, and then when we had our league meetings back in the summer, back in July, they picked the league teams, and we were picked fourth out of 6 teams in the league. And they said, hey, all the games count, blah, blah, blah. And then after we won our first game, which I think was a little bit of an upset, and maybe they looked at it and said, geez, this team is transitioning. They're moving out. Maybe where they won't let them win the league championship. And I'm like, I'm confused. You say the conference games count. You picked us 4th in the league. But either way, we told our guys, well, our games count in the league standing. So as far as we're concerned, we're playing for a conference championship. And we're fortunate we went 5-0 in the league and actually won every league game by an average of 20 points. So we've kind of earned it. And even though the league didn't give us a trophy, we made us our own damn trophy, bigger than the league trophy, and getting our guys championship rings and all that kind of stuff because they did win a conference championship in our opinion.
Well, that's awesome. And, honestly, I'm looking at this and I'm like, wow, Coach Rod went back to Jacksonville State. They're moving up from the FCS, doing what they're doing. How exciting is this for you as a challenge? You've been at some big programs now, and this is something that has got to be like, wow, this is new, man. Keeps that tread kind of cooking, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's a good. I had never coached really in a transition era, either all big schools or the small colleges, Glenville State. So it's kind of in between, and so I think someone having the experience of being at a smaller college like Glenville State and then being at a big school, I kind of had an idea of where we are and where we need to go. And the biggest thing is establishing the culture in the program, making sure the school follows through on the commitments to build a new facility, to do all the things you got to do to compete on the Division I level. Get the staff together like you need to in order to have the chance to win and compete. And so a lot of that it's been a learning process for a lot of people, but I've really been pleased the school is jumped all in with it. There were some other opportunities that maybe it came up after the season. I'm like, hey, we're not finished here. Let's keep building with this thing. And so the biggest thing, Wolf, was really pleased that the coaching staff gets along great. They've got a great coaching staff, and the players have completely bought in to what we want them to do. And we coached them hard. Now, I'm telling you, from day one, we always do, but they've bought into it and really think we have a great atmosphere in our program right now.
They must have, because there was no reward at the end for them for having such a good year as you've had. So apparently they're ready to rock and roll. And that goes to Spade, Coach. How did you go ahead and when you came into this program, how did you set up over the new facilities they bought in? What did you say? Say, listen, man, this is what you need. I've been there. I know what it takes. Is that how you had to go about it?
Well, actually, yeah. During the interview process, they said we're moving up. They have a commitment to build a brand new football facility. And originally it was going to be $110 million football, dining room, and dorm all in the same building. Well, that's been moved, the dining room and dorm out of it. So now it's just going to be a football alone building, which is going to be about $35 million. And since then I've added, well, why not let's build a new weight room too beside it and a new covered practice facility. And so we've added that onto it. And fortunately, when you have some success, it's easier to sell that. And so that's going to be a done deal with that. And then part of it is, how do you motivate your players? Our seniors, we had a good group of seniors, small group, 12 guys. They know they couldn't go to a bowl game because we're not quite Division I yet. They couldn't be eligible for the playoffs because we're in transition. So what did you do to motivate them? We just motivated them to try, listen, we want to put your legacy on being a team that wins every game as possible, plays hard, and helps establish us in this transition. And I told the guys before the year, Wolf, the seniors, listen, we can't go to the bowl game or the playoffs because of transition. But if we win the league, I'll take you somewhere myself. Well, they reminded me that after the last game. And I said, what do you got? Okay, I'll take you on a trip where you want to go. It's right in the middle of recruiting. It's not a good time, but I'll take you where you want to go. I figured they'd want to go to a Titans game or maybe a Falcons game. They said, no, Coach, we want to go to the beach. So last week, I took them down to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, got them a room at the hotel right on the beach, 2 nights, 3 days, took them out to eat, let them have a blast. And it was really neat. It was kind of a senior trip. And finally, the last night we were sitting around meeting and talking about everything. And I asked them, I said, give me your greatest memory as a Jacksonville State football player, the last 4 or 5 years, with your greatest memory. And every one of them said this trip. So I'm like, we did our job. We did it. I think I really appreciate those guys, and it was really a lot of fun.
I'll tell you, in today's day and age, a move like that, the guys that haven't really had that, is something big, something they're going to remember for the rest of their lives. So that's really cool. I totally get that, by the way, man. I coached at a junior college. And you were actually there one time. Come to my junior college and in this old barracksy rickety rockety. So I know you understand it. That's really neat. That's a great story there. And let's have some fun. Let's move on to football now. And you know what's really fascinated me about you, Coach, is wherever you have gone, it seems like, and we're talking offensively now, coaching. Wherever you've gone, you've really just tapped into what the strengths are that you have. Obviously, you have a goal down the road, but when you come into a new program, you have to see what you have, and I think that's what you did with Jacksonville State. But what is Coach Rich Rod? What is the offensive philosophy that where you want to go, and how do you get there?
Yeah, that's a deep question. There's so many things scheme wise. Everybody nowadays, Wolf, at all levels. It used to be going shotgun, no huddle, zone read was unique. Now, a lot of teams on all levels use some of it. So what do you do to separate yourself or get an edge? And you're right, it's got to fit your players. We still believe in tempo. Like, we don't want to put anything in if it's going to slow us down. We're thinking, but also being physical. I think there's a misnomer that if you spread people out and go no huddle, that you're going to be soft in some regards. And that's the last thing we'll ever do. I tell our guys the 2 worst 4-letter words are soft and lazy. And we will not allow that. And so we coached them with a hard edge. Our hard edge is kind of our mantra, so to speak. And, we were good running the football. We were 5th in the country, and I think that helped us control the tempo of the games. But we still like to spread people out. We like to involve our quarterback in the run game because we want to play with 11, not with 10. And then we still use tempo quite a bit. And then what we feature is really based on what those quarterbacks and those skill guys can do well. But it starts up front. I got a great line coach, Rick Trickett. Our guys up front take a lot of pride in being physical and playing hard and using great technique. And the first year is the hardest because it's all new language for them and a new type of system. But they did a great job of buying in with that. And, there's people that have played for me 25, 30 years ago can remember a lot of the same play calls and same kind of methods that we use. But each year we try to get better with it. It's like I tell somebody, they say, well, you got 25 years of head coaching experience. I said, I do. But if all I did was the same thing every year and I didn't grow and learn and evolve, I just have 1 year experience repeated 25 times. I said, the key for me is I got to be a better coach next year than I was this year. I think I'm a better coach than I was 5 years ago, and I'm a better coach than I was 15 or 20 years ago. And I got to it's my job to the players to keep getting better, and I expect that of the players as well.
Okay, so as the offensive coach, are you still the OC, or do you have an OC?
A lot of Mountaineer fans remember Rod Smith. Was with me at West Virginia, played for me at Glenville, and did a great job. Unfortunately, Calvin McGee was, and Calvin passed away in May. It was really tragic, and as fate would have it, Rod was available. I was able to get Rod to take his place, which just was amazing that he was be able to come on our staff. So Rod is our OC. He can call the plays and he helps me. I got eyes in the box, but I still do it. I still love doing it. I'm still involved, obviously, in the game planning. And if I ever get to the point where I'm not involved in the day-to-day meetings and game planning, then I could turn that over. But I still like doing it. And I have a staff that completely understands that. Rod can finish my sentences just like Calvin could. So those eyes in the box are looking at the exact same thing I'm doing, and I still enjoy it very much calling the plays.
Okay, that brings another question to my mind because, I'm sitting here thinking, and I'm thinking, man, analytics, coach. Okay, where are you at with analytics? Is it helping you make decisions, or is it making the decision?
Good point. I think it's a great reference, but to solely rely on that, I think this misses, your team. Or like if it says going for 4th and 1, well, what if you have struggling up front? What if you have a back that can run over somebody to get 4th and 1? Or what if, the conditions are different? So I think you got to look at analytics. It's a great reference point, but I still think it helps to have some idea, what your team is, what their team is, you could get a feel for coaching on the side. You get a feel for the tempo of the game and all that. So I don't rely to make decisions. I just rely on it as a reference point.
I kind of wonder sometimes. I think sometimes you kind of lose your edge if you go ahead and just rely on analytics all the time. So I think it has to be a mix.
I mean, I love to go. I'll never punt the ball inside the 40. I think that's a waste. All right, but say you're on a 50-yard line, it's 4th and 1. Well, most of the time we think we can run the football, so we're going to go for it. But if it's a certain point in the game where your defense is doing great or weather conditions, you might punt the ball away. I hate punting. I think everybody knows that offensively. You don't want to, and we'll never punt inside the 40. I don't care if it's 4th and go from the 38, but outside between that 40 and 40 in that 20-yard zone, that's a to-go range. All right, but it's also you got to play in the fact how well your defense is doing and what the score is as well.
Okay, excellent. All right, so quickly flip it over because we want players to realize they're going to Jacksonville State. They're going to get this defensively. What's your defense? Are you multiple? Are you 4? Are you 3? Even, odd? What is it?
I think everybody's a little bit multiple. I've done more odd than even. I think odd is particularly odd stack is probably maybe the most difficult for an offense to kind of figure out where everybody's fitting at. But my defensive coordinator, Zach Alley, is a young guy, does a really good job. He comes from a Clemson tree, Brent Venables, where they do, it's kind of a mixture of an odd and even front, do a lot of different movements and stunts and disguises, very active pre-snap. And so he's, I don't get involved with the decisions on what plays they call defensively and all that. I have an overview and kind of give my opinion on everything at different points. But he does a great job of mixing it up between the odd and the even. But I think a lot of teams nowadays, will do some odd fronts on 3rd downs and even fronts on 2nd downs. And nowadays, the back's outside defensive end to the boundary is a stand-up guy that can play both. So that's where you can match it. And then I get involved in every special teams. And one reason I do that, Wolf, is because by being involved in all the special teams meetings and every special teams unit, I touch the entire team. That way I know everybody. Mm-hmm. I'm in a meeting with everybody on the team at some point because I'm heavily involved in the special teams, and I love that part of it.
Let me ask you this, and this is overall, and I'm talking individual fundamentals and schematic fundamentals. Do you see any type of shortage? And I'm not trying to be this old guy going back to old school days, but I'm just saying that do you see that there's that issue there where fundamentals are not being taught properly as they should be?
100%, and you're seeing them more and more now because guys are just bailing out and getting in the transfer portal. And, usually sometimes it takes a year or 2 years for guys to learn all the fundamentals to have success. And you don't have enough time to teach them because they bail out after 6 months. And so there is a shortage of that. I think coaches have to coach that as well, but I think they also have to learn to coach that quicker than they used to have to before. And it's easier now because back in the day, you didn't have the coaches able to do any work with our guys in the summer. And the freshmen would come in first for 3 days and then the other guys, and then the freshmen would get lost for a couple of weeks. But I think you have to absolutely have to make sure that you teach the fundamental part of it. And that's one thing about our coaches that I tell our guys, let's be the best in the country at recruiting and the best in the country at recruiting or developing our guys fundamentally. And that's in the weight room, and that's obviously on the practice field. And one thing we sell is I got a mixture of older guys on the staff and some young guys that we keep looking for ways to make our guys better. And as a coach, you got to keep looking at ways to make yourself better from a coaching standpoint. And that all deals with fundamentals.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Let me ask you this then. Today's player, you've been coaching 30-plus years, 25 as a head coach. What's the difference between then and now? And I know there is a difference, but you got to make it work.
Absolutely, there's a difference. I would say this analogy. If you 25 years ago, you tell a guy, "Hey, Wolf, run through that wall." Okay, he'll run through it because you said so. Not think twice about it. Now they'll still run through it, but they want to know why. And if you don't give them the right answer, they'll Google a damn thing. So, well, that ain't what it says in Google, So they're so much smarter, And they do. You got to give them an answer, a legitimate answer for them. But you can still get that guy to play really hard. That's the one thing that's non-negotiable, in my opinion, is playing really hard. And I think the average fan, it can sit in the stands and tell if a team is playing hard. I really believe that. Now, they won't know. They might tell you they know. Every man knows how to do two things, according to Greg Shannon. They know how to coach football and work a grill. Well, reality is they don't know the schemes part of it, but they can see if guys are playing hard. And
Right.
I tell our guys that. I said that's the non-negotiable part. We're going to practice hard, we're going to work out hard, and we're going to play really hard. And that part of it for our coaches, we look at on every snap.
Yeah. So you're saying that even today, I'm just trying to make sure this is clear because this is a question I have. Even today, you could still hold these young men accountable.
Yeah, absolutely. They want it. Even the guys in the NFL I talked about, coaches I talked about in there, NFL, they want you to be able to help extend their careers and make them more money. And in college, they want to be able to create more value for them. We're going to tell them, if you're going to play in the NFL, they're not going to take a guy that's not going to play hard. That's not going to be accountable. And sometimes I think and I don't say this is always the case, but sometimes the coaches are afraid to get on a guy. Oh, you upset him, and he'll go in a portal. Well, if he does, that ain't the guy you want. You want guys that's going to absolutely, they're going to make mistakes, and you got to understand that. But given the effort to get better, being a good teammate, that part is your culture, and your culture can't be sacrificed for anything. This NIL stuff and all that, get the players more money. That is great. I think that's all good. They get to live a good life, But playing hard just because you're getting money or just because, people are recognizing you on social media, you still got a duty to your team, to your school, and to yourself to play as hard as you can and get better each and every day. And so we don't coach, we coach them. I don't want to say old school way, but we coach them in a way that they know that we're going to get the very best out of them all the time. And that's never going to waver. It's never going to waver. One of the things that I teach the young coaches to have is, I guess I've been have fast eyes. We obviously watch the film for practice and you can review it back and forth, but I want them to get coached immediately. If they see something in practice with their eyes, make a correction right there. And I tell the players, we might get on you, but it ain't gonna be long because we're moving on to the next play real quick. So, and it ain't never personal. I say, when you start screwing up as a player and I or our coaches don't say something to you, that means we gave up on you, and we ain't giving up on nobody. And so, we coach him with the aspect that this is going to be the most important day that you ever practice, and it could be in spring ball. So I'm fortunate these guys bought into it, and that's the way West Virginia football has always been. That was always been the way.
It sure has
as well.
Well, that's what I loved about you all these years of coaching and trying to stay in touch with you and watching everything that you did from the outside. And when I watched it and I saw the way you coached and had all your successes, what has changed in that time for you? What have you learned to keep going and growing in? And what have you learned to get out?
Yeah, I think, we all have certain, sometimes in coaching moves or things you do, you're like, geez, that was probably not a good move or a good mistake, or that was a bad play call. And, when I coached my son, Rhett, he was a quarterback for me in Monroe, and that was a neat experience. But, particularly coaching him, I asked him, I said, Rhett, what's important from a player? What's the most important thing that you hear from a coach? He said, Dad, two things. He said, don't waste our time and always tell us the truth. I said, that's great. So, we don't have long meetings where you just ramble on and coaches are just trying to show you how smart they are. We're going to have purposeful meetings. And when we do, we're going to go in there. We're not going to waste their time. When we practice, it may not be more than an hour and 45 minutes, but for an hour and 45 minutes, it's going to be intense and we're going to get work done. And telling them the truth is the biggest part that I think nowadays young men and young athletes, men or women, need to hear more of. Like, tell them exactly what they're doing right or exactly what they're doing wrong, and don't BS them. And you get a lot of that in recruiting. You got a lot of BS going on, and players don't understand where the coach stands, and so they get disenchanted or what have you. And I always think I had 10. I think that's what at Monroe. I had 10 quarterbacks on the roster. 10.
Oh.
And like normally you can't keep more than 3 or 4, right? It's
right.
Like, how do you keep, and quarterbacks number 5 through 10 probably not going to ever get in the game. But none of them quit, and none of them went in the portal until, after we left. And you wonder why. Well, every day we would meet, and we would tell the truth. I'd say, I'll be brutally honest with them, and they'd laugh and have fun. I said, no, if I call a bad play, call me out and tell me that's a horrible play. Now, Rhett would be the only one that did that. But I think telling the guys the truth and being open and honest with them. And then I'd even tell the GAs, well, listen, if a player asks you a question about a scheme or something or play, you don't know what what the answer is, don't BS them. Say, listen, I don't know, but I'll find out. Then come back the next day and tell them, and you'll get more respect that way than trying to BS them. So just being honest with them all the way around, brutally honest with them in recruiting and in coaching, you'll get a lot more done.
Yeah, I've been out of coaching for a while, but brutally honest sure does seem something that's probably not as much today as it has been in the past. That's just my own personal opinion. But before we move on, let's just talk real quick about your offensive line coach, Rick Trickett there. And Trick, how's he doing? Is he still a badass?
Well, I tell him he's a calmer, older, more mature Rick Trickett. I mean, he's getting up there. He's the oldest guy on the staff. I keep teasing that, but he keeps himself in great shape, and he has such a passion for O-line play. He's so technical. He sent more guys probably to the NFL than any line coach in the history of college football. And we use that, obviously, in recruiting because guys wanted to learn. And that's my point. If you want to learn and hopefully you all want to play the NFL, if you go to college, there's nothing wrong with that. All right, this is going to be the guy that's produced more than any in the country, and you're going to be ready to play. Everybody knows about his technique, and, he does a great job with our guys. He's still hardcore. He's not probably I tell him he's not as mean as he used to be. And that's okay, but he did a great job with our guys this year. And as they get to, what's neat is as they get to know Trick and get to work with him, now all of a sudden those older guys take some responsibility and teach the younger guys even more stuff that Trick has. So he did a great job, and he's a good recruiter too. He's a good evaluator. And, it's funny because he talks so slow. This is Coach Rick Trickett. He might sound like he's drinking, but he's not. He's done a great job for us.
Well, he sure has. And I just love it. I didn't know that about the putting in the NFL. That is a huge recruiting factor, by the way. And kudos with him being that. But I love his boys. Clint, I got Travis. I think they're really special. And, it's the whole family and it goes back to that. I bring it out because this is a Mountaineer story going on right now with me, with them, and just the Trickett family, what they've meant.
Yeah, it's like for today, so we had a staff meeting, and Trick, he don't want to ever miss nothing. He said, Clint's got a bowl game in at Myrtle Beach today, and you think none of the rest of the family can make it. Do you think it's okay if I go over? I said, yeah, go over and see him. You ain't missing nothing with this meeting right now. And so he drove 6 hours over to Myrtle Beach to watch Clint and the Thundering Herd play today, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, that really is. Okay, so one more time, switch gears here before we tell a good story or two. But, Coach, let's put the transfer portal. We got NIL. You have college issues that are real going on as a head football coach. How are you dealing with them? How should they be dealt with? It's here. I know you got to deal with it. Whether you like it or not, it doesn't matter. How do you win doing it?
Yeah, that's right. It's here. And I told the coaches the goalposts will move, and we got to move with them. It's probably not as effective, the NIL stuff in the group of five as the Power Five, but it's still a piece of it, and it's obviously a big piece in college football. And I think the intent was good, but you can't really have a pro league or semi-pro league, which is basically what we're going into, without having guardrails and rules and caps and some kind of general structure. It's like the NFL, the worst team gets the first draft pick. In college, the best teams are getting the best draft picks. So you're going to separate the haves and have-nots even more. I think it's going to get to the point where every athlete, student athlete, and should already be there, signs a contract. I mean, how can you be a professional getting paid and not have some kind of contract, whether it's a 1 year or 3 year contract? And, college football it's hard to screw up college football. So it's such a great thing, but there's people that are doing it. To me,
they're trying.
They're trying their tail off. And I think the NIL part is there to stay. So you better embrace it as a coach. I think part of it, which I would like to see more people do it this way, and that's just coach's advice, is maybe not use it as much as an incentive to sign a guy as it is to reward a guy. If a guy's a starter or makes all conference or player of the game, he gets X amount of dollars. And the guy that maybe, plays on special teams or whatever, so many plays, he gets this. And then, you can give the guy a certain something to get there, but he's not going to get paid more than your star player, that kind of deal. And so there's a structure. It's like the NFL, the salary cap in the NFL, the quarterback's going to get about 14 to 16% of your salary cap because that's such an important position. Well, there needs to be some kind of similar structure eventually in college as well. In the meantime, it's wild out there, and you got to adapt.
Yeah, but you know what? I know you've been a six-gun shooter in your time there, but this is even beyond more than I think any of us ever could have imagined, and it's got to be worked out, or I don't think it's sustainable, Coach.
Yeah, it's not. It's got to be some guardrails, but you still. I tell my coaches, well, if I said we have some folks that are interested in starting some NFL stuff for our guys, and I think I'm all for that. That's great, but one thing that cannot sacrifice with any of that is the culture of the program, is the way you go about doing your things. We say two things: hard edge and earned success. That's non-negotiable. I don't care what kind of money is going on. It doesn't matter what a guy's getting paid or what the reward is. The culture of the program comes first and foremost all the time. And we have to remind the guys, our coaches, of that. It doesn't matter. Well, if he's picking a school just because, they're going to get $5,000 more, and that's his only decision, well, that's fine. He's going to go there, but he probably wouldn't fit in our culture. Not that I want all of our guys to get paid a lot, but they're going to play really hard no matter what. And they're going to understand what we want to go about and winning. And part of the thing, our incentive, our guys started, he said, well, they get paid if they win. I said, that's great. Pay them if they win. If they don't win, they don't get paid as much. I think that's a pretty neat incentive myself.
Play pretty hard.
Yeah, you play harder to win, right?
Yeah.
The whole purpose is about – that's like every decision we should make, coaching-wise, is if this is going to do to help us win. Help this guy grow individually, but what's going to help us win? If it's going to help us win, let's entertain it. If it's not, let's not.
Absolutely. All right. You know what? That's pretty darn good. Let me get on to this. Let's get into some fun stuff here, okay? Because I know when you were playing a three-time letterman at WVU, Mountaineer coming down at safety.
The greatest fullback in college football, Ronnie Whitley. Probably the last fullback in college football.
That could be. That's another topic for some other time. But I was going to say Brian Joswiak, because going down there and trying to wrap up a Big Joe's, we had some players on the team, the players you played with, on and off the field. I know it was some good times. But what's standing out to you for your memories that you loved about WVU and those group of guys?
Yeah, it was for me as a player. I was a local guy that walked on, and they didn't know much about me when I got there. And my defensive back coach, Bill McConnell, if you remember him, he was so mean that it gave me a chance because I think they moved me to DB, and I was like fourth or fifth team. But Coach McConnell was so mean that two guys quit in front of me. So I was moving up the depth chart by default. So I'm like, if I just hang in there, I'm going to wind up being okay. And so I got a scholarship the second year, and the stadium was new. We went to 4 bowl games, and I had great teammates. I still talk to them to this day. In fact, Timmy Agee and Tommy Miller and all them came to a game down here in Jacksonville. So I've kept in touch with those guys, and it was just a neat experience. Obviously, being in Morgantown and West Virginia University being the biggest sports thing in the entire state. So I had a lot of fun with that. And then to be able to go back there as the head coach, 18, 20 years later was really pretty neat.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. And I understand I was the head of WVU and alumni. And, Coach, it doesn't matter. Whenever you wear that WV, man, it's a pride, but it's also a relationship bonder. And it doesn't matter. I still see guys from 2 decades before me, and I have this bond with them because we played for the Mountaineers and represent the state. So, again, I understand that very well. And it's such a warm and awesome feeling when you actually experience that bond. And, when I think that Timmy Agee and Tommy Miller coming to see you, that must have been some good memories going on right there, because I know those two very well. And let's move on to coaching, though, because of the stories and what time period. Now, you've had great players in all your programs, but being this is WVU, being this is Pat White, Steve Slayton, and Owen Schmidt, the beard truck. What's your story about that? The creation 3 10-win seasons. I mean, it was a golden period at WVU.
Yeah, it was a great group of obviously very, very talented guys, but also guys that had that mentality, as you're talking about, had a hard edge, played for each other, didn't care who got the credit. Pat's a perfect example of that. I think he was probably the greatest big game quarterback in the history of college football, won 4 bowl games. And Pat would be, he didn't care if he threw it or ran it, no matter what happened. All he cared about was winning. And all those guys did it. Owen Schmidt's a prime example. I mean, he talked about a special young man. He would, nowadays people never run the isolation play, right? They don't run the ISO, can't find a football. Owen would run it 20 times in a row if you asked him to. Break 5 face masks. It didn't matter. And they had a certain edge about them, and it was just a pure joy to coach them and to see them have success. And, like even Pac-Man Jones, I mean, Pac just, he's just texted me a couple weeks ago. He's fighting now, boxing, and he was always a fighter, but he loved playing for West Virginia, and he loved playing for his teammates. So those guys are really special. Really special. Even like old Pat McAfee. I mean, I keep touch with Pat as well. He had a hard edge as a kicker. I know they used to talk about his stories. I quit checking his curfew because I didn't want to know the answer. I just wanted to make sure he make the damn kick. You know what I mean? So I didn't. All right, show up to the game and do all that. But no, he was he was a tough guy as a kicker and a punter. So it was. I was really blessed with that.
Well, you know what? I just love talking to this man. I could spend hours with you just talking to stories and what a time that was that they developed. And I got to tell you, watching those 3 with Stevie and just electrifying, man. And I heard a story one time, and it's kind of like Major Harris, where at Penn State he ran the wrong way and scored that touchdown. That was the play they called. Did Pat White ever run the wrong way, but then go ahead and he made a big play out of going the wrong way? I heard a story that somewhere there was one where he was going like, no.
Robinson, Michigan, he ran the wrong way on his very first play, and he wound up making it a 60-yard touchdown run. But he was pretty talented. But Pat White, I mean, you talk about the Louisville game. He didn't start. They kind of had co-starters, and this is how smart I was. He comes in and leads us to not only to that win, but to all those wins going in the future. But I remember he went in there, and it was a pass play. It wasn't a called draw. It was a pass play, and he turns scrambled around and runs like 65 yards, scores a touchdown, lead us back into the game, and basically won the game for us that day. And I'm like, after that game, I was like, oh, we might have something right here. And you always knew that he was good, but until you play in game speed and watch him do it, you're like, oh, this guy could be special. And from that game on, it was the Pat White show, and it was just love coaching him because he. It's not only – I remember when I was recruiting him and Trickett was recruiting, we went down there and his coach down here in Daphne, Alabama, said, watch out, hang around until after practice and you'll see what Pat White is. I said, after practice? Yeah. So I watched him practice all that, and then in the locker room, he just sat in his locker for a while until all his teammates left. Then he cleaned the entire locker up. And his coach said he does that every day. He waits till his teammates leave, and he cleans the whole locker up because that's his responsibility as a leader to make sure you have a clean locker. And I'm like, that's the guy we want. And so he was he turned out to have, one of the greatest careers any college quarterback could have.
Absolutely. And I love him to death, and he's still a fine representative of the WVU, doing good now here in the NFL. So all that being said, Coach, the greatest game, in my opinion. Now, there's so many great games, so I'm going to get everybody mad at me because, it was this game. No, it was Georgia Sugar Bowl, man. And going down there and just the whole atmosphere of the Big East, team that we're supposed to lose, WVU you were, and you go in there and you could see the videos of the Georgia people celebrating, a little bit snobby, just a tiny bit, but you went down there, and boy, that first half, man, we all remember, we all see it, Pat White, Steve Slayton, all the big plays, but then the second half, they started to come back, and they went in there and scored some points. Ballsiest play I've ever seen in my life. And I would say, what do you think it is? It's the punt. The game's on the line of the greatest game that I think that I see. And go ahead, finish the story.
Yeah, it was so improbable. We went down there, and the game was moved from New Orleans because of the hurricane, so it was basically a home game for them. And then we got down there, and our hotel they had to stay in was like an atrium. I mean, it was a zoo. We couldn't get any. So I took the travel squad to a different hotel,
That's right.
A little bit quieter. And for like 4 days of practice down there, I can remember this like it was yesterday. I don't think we had a single missed assignment on either side of the ball. I mean, our guys were dialed in. And I was nervous because, it was a big bowl game, and Stevie was a freshman and Pat was a freshman. I was more nervous than them. And they were like, Coach, we'll be okay. And so we come out of the game and, executed. The Mountaineer fans showed up, and they were loud. And we come out of the game, like you said, we got a big lead. And they start – I think we pissed them off. They start coming back. And then toward the end, we had – it was funny. It was we had this fake punt, had practiced it all week. and it had to give us a certain look during the game. All right, we need to look for it. If we get that look, we can call it. Well, the first couple of times we punted, they gave us the look that we wanted to run a fake. Well, here it goes, whatever it was left, 5 minutes to go in the game, and we're around midfield. I told the coaches, I said, hey, if we got this look, let me know, and we're going to call the fake right then, right? So we line up for the punt team. I'm on the headsets, and I'm like, okay, hello. Nobody was saying nothing. So I went, the hell with it. Let's go for it. And I asked the coaches what happened. They said, Coach, we ain't making that call. That's up to you. So, we wound up making it. Phil Brady got the first down, and then we had to get another first down after that to seal it. So that was a lot of fun. That was to see the Mountaineer fans. I've seen some clips of it with the Mountaineer fans after the game and during the game. It was really neat to see the joy that they had with that one. It was fun.
Yeah, I could name 5 games that are just like that, but to me, that was the greatest. It was at least the ballsiest moment of any coach. And I'm telling you straight up, that to call a fake punt at that time, absolutely. Are you out of your mind?
No, well, hell, I'm thinking the way they were moving the ball, they were either going to go 80 or 50, so let's go ahead and go for it. What the heck? So, so we weren't at the time. We had a hard time stopping them. But what was neat too is after the game, we're all celebrating, and we go back to our hotel, and there must have been 5,000 West Virginia fans in the lobby. We couldn't get into our hotel room. And our guys were like worried about what we're going to do. I'm like, hell with it. I ain't worried about curfew tonight. We'll stay in the lobby if we had to. So we had a blast. That was a big night. And it was the night after. You remember the night before was when we tragically lost some of those coal miners. And everybody that my dad was a coal miner, so everybody that were in coal miner family, you could really feel the pain that we had. And so for me, I was like, if we could bring just a little bit of joy to those families. In a tragic time, it would be pretty neat.
Wow. You know what, Coach, that is awesome. I'm going to let you go. I know you're busy and this time schedule that you have. And but I want to say thank you so much for this, because it warms my heart. Amazing. I'm a Gamecocks fan, Jacksonville State. I am rooting for the Gamecocks. I'm rooting for the good people down there and for you to have great success. And with your daughter, Raquel, I knew you have now a podcast in the offseason, right?
Yeah, Hard Edge Football. Hard Edge
Football. How do we go ahead and get that? Just where's it on? Platform?
It's on Spotify, Apple Podcast. Yep. And we're going to start this up the first year again. And I'm going to have you on. You're going to be one of my guests on Hard Edge Football Podcast. We'll talk about everything, all thing West Virginia, everything that's going on in college sports and college football in general.
Man, you got yourself a deal on that one. Hey, Coach, thank you very much. Rich Rodriquez, Rich Rod, Coach Rod. Hey, again, happy holidays, man. And thank you for this. Thank you for this time to talk. Really fires me up. All right.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you, man.
Will do.
No matter what it is you need, you'll find it at your local Par-Mar store. From gas to grocery, snacks, and everything else you always seem to run out of, Par-Mar Stores has it. Need more savings? Download the Par-Mar app and sign up for the Par-Mar Rewards Card. You won't only see our stores in your neighborhoods, you'll see us in your neighborhoods too. We are proud to be in your town and proud to be a part of the community. Come see us at Par-Mar Stores, and remember, if there's not a Par-Mar store near you now, there will be soon.